It is indeed an honor to talk about Alberto, who has been one of the most productive demographers in the world over the past 4 decades. I first encountered Alberto in a graduate class on population that I was teaching at the University of Washington. In about the 3rd week of class, students were discussing a reading on the diffusion of fertility decline by Gustav Carlson. Suddenly, this unfamiliar student with a heavy accent yells out, "That article is terrible." "Nice to meet you, Alberto." I've learned over the years that being offended by poor research is a very good predictor of having a successful research career oneself. Alberto went on to write a half-dozen articles, in fact, on diffusion, some of which have become classics. That is, of course, only one of the many, many, many areas to which Alberto has made major contributions. Here is a list of other areas, not a complete list by any stretch of the imagination, but it's totally daunting. They include the measurement of mortality, analysis of interbirth intervals, study of demographic change in Latin America, the demography of HIV/AIDS. In fact, his model for studying the effect of HIV/AIDS was very influential in the UN and WHO's predictions of AIDS mortality. Household size and structure, the Hispanic mortality paradox, demographic responses to economic fluctuations, deforestation, criminology, etc. And there's a lot of stuff in that etc. box. Many, many different subjects. What enables him, I think, to range over such a wide area is that he has outstanding technical talent, both as a statistician and as a demographer. He's one of the very best statisticians working on demographic topics. Invariably, he aims high. He's not content with ad hoc explanations, but insists on rigorous, formal causal reasoning, often elevating the level of discourse on a subject. I think really this is the key to his success. And as the previous slide indicated, he has an unquenchable thirst for identifying and attacking new issues where this expertise can be put to use. This orientation has led him to enroll at age 70, sorry to reveal your age, Alberto, in a program in genetics and evolutionary biology so that he can probe some of the deeper determinants of longevity. So let me mention several specific areas of Alberto's research with apologies to any overlap with other speakers. Alberto has become one of the leading, if not the leading analyst of demographic trends in Latin America, with special emphasis on long-term mortality change. Hiram's going to talk in a little bit greater length about this. Alberto's contributions include the construction of an extremely valuable website, the Latin American Mortality Database. This enormous project is providing original estimates of life expectancy for Latin American countries back to the early 19th century. It includes careful assessments of data quality using in part methods that Alberto himself has developed. The documentation accompanying this database will be a very useful textbook in advanced demographic methods. One of the recurring themes in Alberto's work is the importance of early life factors in adult outcomes. This topic was the basis of his wide-ranging presidential address to the Population Association of America in 2006. Whoops. Not function. I need you again, Hero. This paper integrates analysis of childhood health, intergenerational mobility, and determinants of adult social class, literatures that have rarely been brought together. This diagram is a partial representation of the model that Alberto estimates in this paper, and he gives direct coefficients on each of the many arrows that appear in this diagram. He argues that intergenerational selection processes are key to understanding social stratification and should not simply be controlled statistically, but understood. The empirical work in this paper demonstrates an important role for child health in adult achievement, working through both cognitive and non-cognitive skills. I think it's one of the most thoughtful and important presidential addresses in the history of the PAA, complete with 123 references. It's only one of a dozen or more of Alberto's papers on the effect of child health and social economic status on adult outcomes, including especially mortality. Reading one of these papers, I suddenly felt like I was being hit on the head with a blunt instrument. The paper forced the reader to recognize that if adult mortality is strongly affected by educational attainment, which it is, as far as I know, in every population where it's been studied, and if educational attainment is heavily determined by conditions in childhood, which I think also pertains in every population where it's been studied, then adult mortality is being strongly influenced by conditions in childhood. How perfectly obvious is that? But I hadn't seen it in quite that light. These papers have important policy implications by pushing attention towards circumstances at young ages, even if the ultimate target is the chronic diseases of older age. They also have implications for formal demography. In an insightful 2017 paper with Iran in Demography entitled Discrete Barker Frailty, they demonstrate how the delayed effects of child health can affect not only the level but also the shape of mortality at older ages and produce a misinterpretation of trends in senescent mortality if you are not careful. Let's move to a more attractive slide. Many of Alberto's papers have policy implications. Does President Trump stimulate your interest in the relationship between immigration and crime? I refer you to Alberto and John Hagan's paper in the 1998 National Academy Report, well ahead of its time. They refute the notion that Mexican immigrants are more likely to commit crime by the authors doing an age-sex standardization of crime rates, which controls the high representation of young men among migrants. Just good, basic, important demography. They conclude, quote, "We may wish to place the priority on finding ways to preserve, protect, and promote the social and cultural capital that Mexican immigrants bring to their experience in the U.S., rather than to overemphasize issues of crime and punishment." Amen. I should note that some of Alberto's most influential papers are unpublished. I've sent at least a half dozen students scurrying after Alberto's paper with Rob Mayer on how to treat joint survival of husbands and wives in survival models. Alberto, please publish this article, now 20 years old. Let me close with a couple of more personal remarks. Those of us who are privileged to know Alberto know a complex and very endearing individual, a man of many parts, and even a few contradictions. I pointed out some of these contradictions on a previous occasion. He is highly accomplished and looks like Al Pacino, as you can see, but is incessantly self-deprecating. He's a cigar smoker and a marathon runner, a soccer star who could have turned professional and a devotee of the Cathars, a 12th century religious sect in southern France. A passionate Italian and a demure Midwesterner. Someone totally devoted to the University of Wisconsin who has entertained more job offers than the rest of the profession combined. Alberto, we are delighted to know you. Very impressed with your accomplishments and congratulations on this much deserved honor.